We got fantasy football week 11 waiver wire targets, must add fantasy football players. We always give you just a couple of names from each position. So why don't you start us off, David? I know where you're going to go initially with the quarterbacks. Who is your quarterback du jour?
You know it. I want to see if you can guess
Tua.
it. Say it.
It's got to be
Tua.
Tua.
He knows.
Come on, man.
Too well. It's Tua. 32.3% of leagues own. Get this guy above 50%.
It's unbelievable to me that Tua is still available. He's a slam dunk must add. Quarterbacks to me are paltry other than that. I do think that New England will run a little bit more with Cam. He's available in a lot of leagues. You can pick him up. Rivers, I mentioned before with Indianapolis, and David and I were talking, they're changing the perspective of their team. They're passing more. Phillip Rivers is being a little bit more efficient. I like Michael Pittman Jr.'s ascension in that passing game. So you can pick him up. But
and
these
the
aren't really...
they have on their side as well.
Yeah, exactly. The schedule is big. So I really don't, outside of Tua, I don't have anybody I love. Tua's a slam dunk. Other than that, you're kind of looking for some stream plays, in my opinion. You got anybody else you like?
I do. How can you not love Jameis Winston? Last year's QB4 in points per game.
He's so toxic for me.
He gets Atlanta, Denver, and Atlanta the next 3 weeks if Breeze misses up to 3 weeks. Atlanta twice in 3 weeks. The number one fantasy matchup for quarterbacks. Jameis Winston, he's a smash add this week if you're desperate for a quarterback, especially in super flex leagues.
Yeah, for me, if you're looking for a 1 week stream, I know it's crazy to bet on, but I think it's a little crazy to bet on Jameis Winston too. Carson Wentz, for me, could be a nice just scoop up and play for 1 week if you're desperate. But, really for David and me, it's Tua or bust. If Tua is still available, you got to get him. Running back, why don't you – I know you're top –
Let me hit there real quick. I know we want to be quick with the waivers, but – there's two more guys who are on my list who I do think make a little bit sense, especially Teddy Bridgewater. We talk about if he's healthy. Detroit and Minnesota next. And then he's got Denver week 14. Those are good matchups, helping the short term, helping the fantasy playoffs. Daniel Jones in some deeper super, maybe 10-team super, or not, I should say shallow super flex leagues. You got to buy. Then he faces Cincy, Seattle, Arizona, Cleveland. He finishes with Baltimore, but he's got 4 good matchups after his bye, and he's been decent. So you could do worse in a 2 QB format.
Yeah. I don't know. If for me, it's Tua or nothing else.
Yeah,
I'm just riding with who I got.
Winston or bust. Tua or Winston or bust.
Well, I know who your number 1 running back is. Should I just say it?
Yeah.
Kalen Ballage, man. It's got to be Kalen
Ballage, guys.
Yeah. We talked about it in the Chargers segment, but look, man, the dude is big. He's strong. He has vision. He has better hands than you'd think. Don't worry about what happened in Miami. Like, everybody loves Kenyan Drake now. Hey, remember, he couldn't get more than 2 yards to carry in Miami either. Kalen Ballage is everything, even because Eckler probably should be coming back, if not this week, next week, probably, week 12. I still think Kalen Ballage is going to – look, man, he's the thunder that can make this team go, and he can catch the ball. You can leave him on. He can be a 3-down back. And if you're in a dynasty league, I believe that he has an opportunity to be a starter somewhere next year if it's not with the Chargers. What about a second guy on your list?
Let me just hit on Kalen Ballage
please do.
Before I get to it, because this is my segment of the week. Ballage. So I'm going to just give you some bullet points. Miami sucked, like really sucked when he was there. Terrible. Joshua Kelly also sucks. He's terrible. Yeah. 3.2 yards per carry, 1.5 after contact. Justin Jackson, hurt. Troy Maine Pope, career special teamer. Austin Eckler, also hurt. He's coming back. McCaffrey came back for a week. He got hurt again. Kalen Ballage, this team is scoring so many running back points. Take him seriously, please, so I don't have to go crazy about him for another week. Also, start taking Wayne Gallman a little bit more seriously. Death taxes and Wayne Gallman scoring double-digit fantasy points. Apparently, he keeps doing it. He's got a touchdown and a reception in 4 straight games. RB 11 in points per game over that stretch over the past month. Like we said with Daniel Jones, he, after the bye, finishes up with Cincinnati, Seattle, Arizona, and Cleveland before a tough season-ending matchup against Baltimore.
This week we've both liked the waiver wire for the last 3 weeks. You can find an entire starting roster on the waiver wire this week. Tua at quarterback. You got Kalen Ballage in the backfield. I'll give you my second running back that I would start in most leagues, right? 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers. My second running back I would start J.D. McKissic. He gets 14 targets a week, everybody. I'm talking more for PPR. And I will give you you got Wayne Gallman. I'll give you a possible flex option as well. I don't know if I would actually play it, but Nyheim Hines, I mean, as we're talking about Indianapolis is passing more, Hines has been outscoring Jonathan Taylor. I mean, look at the numbers the last few weeks. It's been trending that way, so it could get there. You also have guys like Damian Harris, who's getting a crazy amount of carries, not a lot of receptions or anything, like 0 receptions. But once he gets into the end zone, I mean, that's like a 16, 17, 22, 23-point day with how they're running the ball. So you got some guys out there. Who else do you like at running back, David?
Yeah, I think Harris and McKissic were like just above the roster percentage threshold, so they're
Okay.
not going to be in my article this week, just barely. So they're still available in a lot of leagues.
Yep.
But especially Harris, he gets Houston Texans this week, guys, who have number 2 easiest fantasy matchup behind Detroit Lions. So gotta add Damian Harris if he's still available. I think Gus Edwards still leading the Ravens backfield in touches. He got involved with the reception, 31-yard reception,
Yep.
and then it's that schedule, guys. Time to start looking at the schedule down the stretch. Dallas, Cleveland, the Jaguars, and the Giants as last 4. He's going to have some touchdown upside in those last 4 matchups.
Yep, and then we also talked about Salvan Ahmed from Miami. He has really nice vision. Let's move it to wide receiver. I'll start there. Michael Pittman Jr., I've been talking about him. This is the second week now I said he's my ad of the week, with respect to Kalen Ballage, who I also think. But, like, he's my guy if you need a receiver. And the reason he's my ad is because I'm loaded at running back, and I'm always loaded at running back in my leagues. But, receiver, there are a lot of people out there that need a consistent receiver. There's a lot of volatility at that position, so you can usually stream somebody. Michael Pittman Jr., I'm not going to say he has the body composition of a Chase Claypool or DK Metcalf, but outside of those guys who are the physical freaks, the anomalies, Pittman's a big dude, and he runs faster than you watch him, he looks a foot taller than everybody, he looks a half a step faster than everybody, and Phillip Rivers is targeting him quite a bit. For me, he's a slam dunk play, not only for Keeper and Dynasty League, which you got to hold him, in my opinion, next year if you can. But he's going to be integrated in the offense. And I'll give you my second wide receiver who I'd play in my starting roster. You can talk about him more because you've been talking him up a while. Cole Beasley is still out there available in leagues. So he'd be my second one. What do you think about those?
I like Cole Beasley. I think he's just above the threshold as well. So he didn't quite make under 50% for me to make my article. But I'm also in on another Buffalo receiver, and it all hinges on John Brown's health.
Yeah, right.
But John Brown did get hurt in this past game. From the latest news I saw, it could be 2 to 3 weeks out. Gabriel Davis, guys, he's just been one wide receiver injury away from getting back into that high full snap count, and he's flashed consistently through this year. 1 for 6, a touchdown against Miami week 2, 4 for 81 against LA week 3. Another 26-yard touchdown against Oakland week 4, 5 for 58 against Tennessee week 5, 4 for 70 in a touchdown against Seattle week 9. I mean, Gabriel Davis, if John Brown's out, he's an auto start. So he's going to the top of my list this week. Hopeful, I guess not hopeful. That's the wrong word. I'm not hopeful John Brown's hurt,
No, right.
and injured and missing time. But I'm willing to prioritize Davis before the John Brown news comes out, because I do believe he will miss a game or two, and that Gabriel Davis is going to be an automatic start in those games.
Yep. A couple guys, Jacoby Myers getting a lot of targets. New England, obviously. He's somebody you should pay attention to. Corey Davis, we've talked about ad nauseum on this show. For some reason, he's still available in a lot of leagues. I think he's above your threshold. Usually I take people who are owned in 60% or less. I think, David, for your articles, it's always 50%. So, obviously, if those guys are available, pick them up. Jerry Jeudy, you got Jalen Reagor, and Alan Lazard, who we talked about a little bit before as well. He's going to be coming off the IR soon. Very interesting. Is there another guy on your list that we might not have mentioned, David?
I think it would be Alan Lazard.
Yeah.
And to me, there's not a whole lot separating these guys. Like, I've got Reagor there, Myers, Mims, Mooney, Tim Patrick, Josh Reynolds, Jakeem Grant. Like, these guys are mostly flyers. The tiebreaker here, it's the quarterbacks. Mecole Hardman and Alan Lazard, they're playing with Patrick Mahomes and Aaron Rodgers in two offensive that we've seen heat up and be legit passing offenses. So I think there's so much more upside, especially this time of the season, adding a guy like Mecole Hardman or Alan Lazard to your team than a guy like Darnell Mooney, who, although he's been good, the ceiling is just not there in a Bears passing offense. Denzel Mims, he's been good. The ceiling is just not there in the Jets passing offense. I'd rather take the shot on the Mecole Hardmans and the Alan Lazards of the world.
Absolutely. Let's move it on to tight end. I'll start with mine because we kind of were going back and forth, and honestly, I think we should still be going back and forth on this. It's San Francisco tight end. Is it Jordan Reed or Ross Dwelley? Jordan Reed outdrew in terms of targets, or at least in terms of scoring. Jordan Reed scored more. I still think that if he's healthy, and this is the biggest if in fantasy, I think, if he can stay outside of maybe Dalvin Cook, if he can stay healthy, Jordan Reed, I believe Kyle Shanahan wants to use him to integrate him, but he's always injured. So I think Dwelley's going to have value, and eventually I believe Reed will go down, and it'll be Dwelley. But what do you think, David?
I mean, his wheels might be held together with Scotch tape and Elmer's glue, but you ride them till the wheels fall off right now. I mean, we talk about it over and over again, especially once we hit the midpoint season. There's nothing out there for tight ends. There's just nothing to pick from. So when a guy catches 5 for 62, you don't have a choice. You got no choice. You got to pick him up. You got to stash Jordan Reed and just, I guess, keep starting him until his wheels fall off again. The other guy we talked about before, Logan Thomas. Washington ran a whopping 88 plays this past week. Thomas out there for 87 of them. He's seeing essentially 100% of the snaps, 57 from the slot. He's a big slot wide receiver, not a tight end. He only played 17 snaps, I believe, in line. So he's being used as a big slot. Alex Smith, 39 and 55 passing attempts for Washington the last 2 games. That 39 includes Kyle Allen's attempts. But just for Smith, 325 and 390 yards the past 2 games. There's not a ton of touchdown upside. But when you're seeing 100% of the snaps on a team that's throwing the ball 50-plus times, it makes you absolutely usable. Beyond that, Dalton Schultz we talked about. It's not a whole lot there. I don't know if you have a third one. I have a fourth one I want to mention, but I'll let you go ahead first.
It probably doesn't hit your cutoff, but for me, Dallas Goedert is still, still available in a lot of leagues. I do think he'll tend to get better, but for crying out loud, I mean, Richard Rodgers is a little bit more integrated in that offense than I would care for him to be. I mean, you can see Goddard's on the field, and he's kind of the blocker and all that, but he's just not a factor in the passing game at the moment. But also Philly's struggling, so I do think they'll figure it out. And I also throw one thing out to you, another kind of murky situation, and it's funny because I didn't notice beforehand, but I've been talking a lot about the Colts because their offense is trending up. Indianapolis Colts tight end. What I'm personally waiting on, honestly, though, is Ali Cox just to take the job because he's the most athletic guy. He's the most impactful guy. I'm sick of going back between guys like Burton and Doyle. I know Doyle's hurt. It's Ali Cox. He's the best of them, but he just hasn't won the offense's trust yet. If that happens by the end of the year, I think he can be a star.
And I agree on that. I think both Mo Alley-Cox and Trey Burton are worth stashes just because if either one of these guys goes down, the other one becomes absolutely startable. You're stashing and hoping that somehow one of these guys emerges. And one more guy who I want to talk about, this is in deep 2 tight end leagues. Sure. This is two tight end league only ad. Taysom Hill is eligible at tight end in a lot of leagues. I know ESPN, I believe, only has him eligible at tight end. And he's got 13.5, 8, and 3.5. This is, I believe, half PPR right there. Points the past 3 weeks. So 2 out of the past 3 weeks, he would be a decent startable tight end. We talked about tight end. I don't know if you saw this. The highest scoring tight end this past week scored 13.1 fantasy points and was outscored by 7 different kickers. So if you're getting 13.5 from Taysom Hill in a week at your tight end spot, that's a top 5 tight end week. And Breeze is probably going to miss some time. We don't know how much more they're going to involve Taysom Hill. It's going to go to Jameis Winston. He's going to be the quarterback out
more
there.
Wildcat and all that, yeah.
But they could very easily uptick that Wildcat, that Taysom Hill usage, another 5 to 10%, get him involved 4 to 5 more plays per game. That's all it's going to take to make him a decent tight end flyer. Hell, even maybe in a deep, maybe 12, 14 team league with deep rosters and you need just a 1 week start, Taysom Hill, Atlanta, Denver, Atlanta the next 3 weeks. He could have 2 or 3 good games as a tight end here.
Daily fantasy, look out. That's a good note. That's a good note. Defense and special teams. I'll just lead off on mine. The obvious choice for all fantasy football players is the defense that's playing the Jets. That will be the Los Angeles Chargers. They're available in a lot of leagues. They have talent on the Chargers defense. I actually thought they did a nice job against the Miami Dolphins. The Miami Dolphins are better than you think they are offensively. the Chargers aren't playing great, but they do have talent. They should be able to shut the Jets down. That should be a lower scoring game. But there's one for you. Who do you got?
There's really not a whole lot to stream out there this week. Like, really try and get the Chargers if you can. I mean, Carolina faces Detroit. We got Dallas and Minnesota facing each other. And then the Bengals against Washington. Other than that, all the good matchups are pretty much already owned in more than 50% of the leagues. You
could make a case for maybe Cleveland versus Philadelphia if that's a lower scoring game. I don't love that bet. They're, your best shot here, and you're hoping that most of the other defenses are owned, is in a lot of leagues the Patriots had been dropped. They're above both of our thresholds, but I've noticed that they were out there. Maybe in about a third of the leagues, if that. But they get Houston. Houston's kind of struggling. If you're going to bet on somebody, I would say probably the Chargers and the Patriots are my safer place if you have to stream somebody. But hopefully you picked up some other guys weeks before and you can play them, because it is a little bit of a paltry week for defense and special teams.
And I will say one more to throw out, maybe the Browns, just because Philadelphia's been taking some sacks, and we talk about, especially with Nick Chubb back, it was a 10-6 game. They want to slow the game down, run the ball, limit time of possession for the other team. It could end up being a sneaky start game for the Browns. But again, if you don't have, I want to throw this out there too, if you're in a league where defenses tend to go negative in bad matchups, and you don't have a good matchup out there this week, just consider playing no defense this week and looking ahead to next week and adding a defense who's got a killer matchup next week, who everyone's going to be after on waivers next week. Play no defense for a week. Don't risk going negative with a defense you don't like. And then next week you have a firm option to plug in.
The Giants play Cincinnati. That is an interesting. I'm talking about week 12 here. That's an interesting one to me because people will drop the Giants because they're on their bye week. I'm trying to see some of these other matchups here. I'm not seeing a lot out there. Cleveland, by the way, plays Jacksonville next week. That could be interesting. And we're talking about them playing Philly and being a sneaky play.
Yeah, so they could be a 2-week ad there.
Yeah. Next week is going to be a paltry week again. Houston plays Detroit and vice versa next week. I don't know. I hope you have your defense tucked away and your tight ends, because there's not a lot there. But receivers, running backs, you can find them. And quarterback, for crying out loud, get Tua. Anyway, I think that wraps up the waiver wire, man. I think that actually wraps up the show. David, you got anything for the crowd before we go?
No, wish me luck, guys. Hopefully, I got this new microphone. I couldn't figure out how to set it up today. I got the new camera so you can see my ugly face in crystal clear form. But wish me luck. Hopefully next week I can have this nice blue Yeti microphone set up, and you guys can hear me as well in crystal clear form, and not have to listen to the little duds and crackles that you probably listen to right now.
No, your audio. I think your audio is okay, but looking forward to the new microphone as always. And hey, everybody, it's playoff kind of calibration time, and there's still a lot out there on waiver wire. So pick those players up. For crying out loud, Tua, Kalen Ballage, Michael Pittman Jr., they might be starters for you in your playoff run. I mean, honestly, these guys could really pop by the end of the year, and you got to be paying attention to them. Everybody, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Like, comment, subscribe, all that stuff. We'll catch you again next week.